Harry Potter fans have spent countless hours mulling over the books in the film franchise and have devised some pretty spellbinding theories about the world of witchcraft and wizardry, some of which have even impressed the author herself. Let's take a look at some of the most game-changing of them all. Muggles versus wizards. Why do wizards have to hide their powers from Muggles? And if they are so powerful, why aren't they in charge of the world? If history has taught us anything, it's that usually those with superior firepower and knowledge win in any matchup. However, one Redditor had a different idea, and it gives an interesting alternate explanation. Wizards and Muggles fought a war sometime in the Middle Ages, and the Muggles won. In Goblet of Fire, it is revealed that the Ministry of Magic has to talk to the British Prime Minister about bringing a dragon into the country. This implies that the Minister of Magic reports to the British Prime Minister and may require his approval for matters of this nature. Additionally, wizards of today appear to be much less powerful when compared to ancient wizards like Merlin, the Peverils, and the founders of Hogwarts. Perhaps the Muggles were more successful with their trials and inquisitions than we were originally led to believe. The real Rita Skeeter. There were a lot of colorful characters to come and go in the Harry Potter series, but none felt quite as familiar as Rita Skeeter, the intrepid journalist who would stop at nothing to get her scoop for the Daily Prophet. While her ethics were often questionable, there was something about her prose that made many fans wonder whether J.K. Rowling might have designed the character to be reminiscent of herself. After all, Rowling is also a writer who also made a detailed accounting of the non-Muggle world that feels very, very real to some readers. At least one theorist has taken it a step further and suggested that Rowling actually is Rita Skeeter in real life, spilling all of these well-documented details about the wizarding world to us no-mage types as a means of getting revenge against those who shunned her from the other side.
Scratch that last.
The secret of Horcruxes. One process that never gets fully explained in the Harry Potter series is how Horcruxes are made. Lord Voldemort was able to make himself a bounty of these little life preservers at some point in his younger years, but he seemed to be the only one who ever had any backup souls to spare and seemed to be unable or unwilling to create any more once our hero started destroying them. So it must have been difficult.
But this is very dark stuff, very dark indeed.
J.K. Rowling herself has been vague about how they're made, though she did once say that attempts would probably be deadly for most wizards because it's as complicated as splitting an atom. According to the Harry Potter World UK on Twitter, Rowling revealed the process to her editor, who allegedly felt like vomiting after. This led one Redditor to surmise that cannibalism may be involved. Both cannibalism and the creation of Horcruxes involve stealing a life force for the absorption of another. The theory seems to have gained some serious traction in Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, as it was revealed that prior to becoming Voldemort's pet and tag-along Horcrux, Nagini was actually a shape-shifting maledictus who had a female human form before we met her in the original series. Voldemort may have killed off the piece of Nagini that was human and swapped in a piece of his own soul instead. In defense of the Dursleys. When Voldemort tried to kill infant Harry, a small piece of Tom Riddle's soul latched onto Harry's brain and cozied up in there for the next 17 years. Even though Harry was not a traditional Horcrux, we know that Voldemort's presence affected Harry, giving him some of Voldemort's powers and causing occasional angry and violent outbursts. What if Harry wasn't the only one affected by Voldemort's presence? Voldemort's Horcruxes were capable of dramatically changing the personality of someone exposed to one for extended periods. Harry and Hermione were frequently snappish and angry while carrying the locket, and normally happy-go-lucky Ron turned into a raging, jealous mess who abandoned his friends. If a Horcrux can do that to a genial and good-natured person, what might it have done to the Dursleys, who were around Harry every day for 10 years? From the flashbacks, we know that Petunia wasn't exactly a very nice person as a child, and Vernon was probably no better. But it is interesting to consider that maybe their already sour natures were further exacerbated by Voldemort's evil influence. Since Dudley was born the same year as Harry, he's literally lived almost his entire life around this Horcrux. It almost makes you feel a little sorry for them. Almost. Neville's clumsiness. During Neville Longbottom's first flying lesson at Hogwarts, He earned a reputation as clumsy and perhaps not the brightest student in the new class of first years. There are plenty of other examples of Neville being clumsy with magic and spells during his early years at the school, but that first flying lesson may not have been Neville's fault at all. After Voldemort's death, the Longbottoms were targeted by Death Eaters and tortured to insanity, which speaks to a definite animus against the Longbottoms by Voldemort's crew. When Professor Quirrell first tries to kill Harry in Sorcerer's Stone, he does so by bewitching Harry's broom as he rides it during a Quidditch match. The unnatural movements of Harry's broom are very similar to what happened to Neville during his flying lesson. What if that arm-breaking incident was because Quirrell was using the same charm to exact a little torture on the Longbottom boy? It should also be pointed out that until it was broken during the events in Order of the Phoenix, Neville was using his father's wand, the father who was driven insane when Neville was an infant. As we all know, the wand chooses the wizard, and so some of Neville's early difficulties with spells may have been due to him using this hand-me-down. After Neville gets a new wand, he seems to grow in leaps and bounds in his confidence and spell abilities. Self-sorting wizards. In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the Sorting Hat struggles with where to put Potter after the boy wizard kept thinking over and over again,
"Not Slytherin, not Slytherin."
Not Slytherin, eh?
The Sorting Hat assured him that it'd be a good fit for him but sent him over to Gryffindor instead, per his wishes. As a result of that scene, some fans suspect that Harry may not have been the only one who moved himself to another house. One fan theory suggests that both Ron and Hermione were also sent to Gryffindor rather than houses they were suited for, Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw respectively, because of their own preferences. For Ron, the reasoning behind the choice seems simple enough. All of his family was already in Gryffindor, so he wanted to fit in. For Hermione, it may have been a reflection of her own newfound valor in venturing into this whole new world alone. Centaurs know all. There were two big scenes in the Harry Potter series that pitted the titular wizard against his arch-nemesis Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest, and the first may have foreshadowed the last. As one fan theorist points out, after his brush with death as a baby, Harry's first encounter with the Dark Lord took place in the forest, where he was sent to detention alongside Hermione, Ron, and Draco Malfoy with instructions to find out who was killing off the unicorns. There he found a cloaked figure, which he'd later discovered to be Voldemort, drinking a unicorn's blood. Firenze the Centaur scared the figure away, and in the book was then scolded by his fellow Centaur Bane, who warned him, "We are sworn not to set ourselves against the heavens. Have we not read what is to come in the movements of the planets?" The Centaurs didn't go on to spell it out, so what we didn't know at the time was that Harry's fate was to die at the hands of Voldemort in that very place. The Centaurs pretty much foretold the final battle before Harry knew the identity of the cloaked figure that threatened his life so early on.
Just something to think about.
Protecting Snape. The Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom was a revolving door for professors at Hogwarts during Harry's time as a student. First, there was Professor Quirrell, who carried Voldemort on the back of his head. Then came Gilderoy Lockhart, who was a fraud and lost all his memories due to a misfired memory charm. Remus Lupin also walked away after he was exposed as a werewolf. Then Mad-Eye Moody turned out to be Barty Crouch Jr. in disguise, and Dolores Umbridge got herself dismissed for insubordination and general wickedness before Severus Snape was finally transferred from his position as potions professor to take over.
You know, I really hate children.
All the while, Snape seemed like the most obvious choice for the role, and some fans were left to wonder why he didn't get it until Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. One theory has it that Dumbledore never gave him the post to protect him. The idea is that because he wouldn't let Tom Riddle have the job years before, Riddle cursed the position and assured that everyone who occupied it would suffer some kind of cruel fate and serve just 1 year. Dumbledore refused Snape the job until he made the unbreakable vow to kill Dumbledore and thus resigned himself to a horrible year already. The theory might also explain why Snape, as headmaster, installed a Death Eater in the role next, as he was clearly willing to sabotage the guy on the sly whenever possible.
Are you incapable of restraining yourself, or do you take pride in being an insufferable know-it-all?
Professor Trelawney was the real deal. She might have caught a lot of flack for her histrionics, but Professor Trelawney was actually on the mark with her prophecies a lot more often than people thought. For example, A reread of what she predicted in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban has some theorists believing she predicted Dumbledore's death long before it happened because she refused a seat at Christmas dinner by saying, "If I join the table, we shall be 13. Nothing could be more unlucky. Never forget that when 13 dine together, the first to rise will be the first to die." With Peter Pettigrew hiding out in the form of Ron's rat Scabbers, there were 13 people at the table, and Dumbledore was the first to stand. Meanwhile, she might not have been so wrong in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire when she sensed that Harry was born in midwinter. Harry was a July baby, but what we didn't know at the time was that a piece of Voldemort was still embedded in him, and Tom Riddle's birthday just so happened to be December 31st. Some speculate that her misinterpretation may have only been due to the fact that her sense was so strong that she was picking up on the Dark Lord's date of birth instead. It looks like Sybil Trelawney shouldn't have been such a laughingstock after all.